Hey, Internet. Hooey. Again, hooey, just like last night. So, this afternoon, with a slightly limited amount of time, we're going to do some looking at how the text from this morning's readings in the three lectionary hang together in a rather marvelous way, which I was unable to explore at my congregation because we spent the morning learning one of the divine services in the Lutheran service book, which they did not know. So, we spent some time going over first what the divine service is. I take every opportunity I have to teach the fullness of what the liturgy is doing, and then also the music. So we practice the music. So we learned Divine Service 4 with that. That brings them up to they know 4 of the 5, and we'll be doing that one through the summer. So cool. I always really encourage and enjoy using all of your hymnal, letting it be a seasonal thing. It gives a lot of flavor. People say, it never changes. Well, no, that's just it. Change it seasonally. Yeah, change it seasonally. With that said, because I used that time to teach, I did not actually preach a real sermon today. I just preached on, well, the word and the sacraments of Jesus as confessed by the scriptures in the liturgy. So I promised the people, though, like, look, the pigs thing. We got to deal with the pigs thing. The pigs in the text are pretty cool. So we're going to deal with that here. But first, just a little bit of news that I want to share. A couple of things from mainly the stream last night. The original stream was dealing with monetization on the channel, and I'll come back here for just a second. And, the joy that is whatever social media is now and what it's become. And I find this very interesting. Before, like as soon as the stream was over last night, the video that I did talking about Facebook and monetization had been demonetized. Okay, cool. Like up to this point, it's always been like Christianity that was getting demonetized. So there'd be like the word Catholic in the tag somewhere or something. So none of that was in this last night. And I have monetized videos, so it's not me in theory. This is some algorithm out there, right? I mean, unless they got one person that really is just focused on me, I really don't think that. Although I have said the word Illuminati too often recently, I gotta say. Well, with that said, I mean, it's just kind of, I'll just show you. Why would this be demonetized? Look at this. So the title of the thing is Hooey. Ooh, wow, dangerous there, right? It's a late night and a long day, but I do bash Google and Facebook again because it's kind of weird, kind of well-deserved. All right, but I don't think the AI that's reading this stuff yet can like tell the grammar. They're looking for keywords. So, okay. And then free speech, privacy, and public square. Those are your tags. That's demonetized. I mean, really? I mean, if that doesn't make you just a little bit maybe nervous, yeah, well, whatever. I don't care, but I thought you should see it. What I care a little more about, and I'm really kind of bothered by, is that in the midst of this conversation, there was a voice that was on the side, and I can't always look at the comments on the side. In fact, where are they? I don't even see them right now. Where'd you guys go? Oh, I don't like that. Oh, and I don't want to take the time right now to try to see you. Normally, I can see your comments running on the side, and I have no reason why that would have turned off right now, but they're not there. There's got to be a button to make that easy. Comments. No, I don't know. I'm not going to... Oh, is that it? Nope, that's people who are... Oh, you can probably see that. That's cool. Oh, that's so frustrating. I hate to waste your time by searching for this, but I value your comments. In any case, I don't always get the chance to, as like today, to read the comments while I am having the conversation with you. So I didn't go back until the end and look through, and I noticed there was an individual who, I don't know if I recognize the name, but I'm assuming that he's there to hear the gospel, largely. And he was really calling out, one particular race for being the problem of all the world's evils, sort of. And, so that's not a good thing. Regardless, it's as a commenter said later of the video, it is sloppy. It's sloppy. No one race does everything. That's just sloppy. And it's not clear thinking. Certainly not biblical thinking, and we may deal with that a little bit today. But I did a short video afterwards that I didn't really want to do because I wanted to go to bed, saying, hey, don't do this on my channel, please. Like, seriously, you go start your own channel and peddle that if you need to. But I disagree, and I don't think this is the place for it at all, right? Not at all. This doesn't belong. Now, what I find most interesting about this is that video, which has had a good number of views, a decent number of views for a day. It's the most disliked video in 3 days. Now, by and large, I get it's something like about 10% of the views get likes, give or take a little more. That's pretty good. I think we're doing pretty well. If like, so the on Hui, what is it? 369 views, 43 likes. That's really good. 0 dislikes. Yeah, I don't get a lot of dislikes because I'm not really out there where anybody who isn't looking for this can find it. Yeah. So there's not a lot of contrary opinions here to Christianity, at least. So maybe I'll get 1 or 2 sometimes, but like, yeah. And look, there are calls about anti-Semitism being so rampant out in the world today that I've thought, guys, I agree with you. I totally agree with you. But like, is it really that bad? And well, if you are one of these people, I mean, you're making me change my mind, not in your favor. I'm actually starting to think, yeah, wow, there's a lot of bigots out there on this matter. Because frankly, because I don't even take a picture of the one that wanted to share his name. This was on a later thing. Someone said, the Jews killed our Lord. Well, God bless you, you fool. No, they didn't. The Romans killed our Lord. Yes, the Jews put him up to it. That is the Pharisees of the day. Although there were some Jews there crying about it too, didn't really want it to happen. The Lord, who you call our Lord, also being a Jew himself. And honestly, it wasn't any of them. It was you. It was you. You killed our Lord. I killed our Lord. And if you can't say that, well, you should think twice about that in general. And then, right. With that being said, remember that all the early Christians also were of Hebraic, Abrahamic descent, circumcised, like Paul, on the 8th day, a Hebrew of Hebrews. So, I'm sorry. You got no leg to stand on, biblically speaking. If you really think there's some crazy conspiracy out there, okay, cool, man. Go love the conspiracy, but don't do it here. And it's sloppy. It's sloppy. If there really is a group of people trying to take over the world with Google and Facebook, and they're actually out there as a financial cartel, this will stop anyone from listening to you about that. I mean, come on, man. Just gotta come on. Okay, that's not why we're here, but I found all that stuff really, really interesting. What we are here for, again, is to look at pigs. Speaking of a Hebraic issue. Go figure. Pigs. So today's readings hung together in a really cool way that the 3-year lectionary doesn't always quite do. And at first I was like, why? And then I was like, ooh, as I saw it. So what we're going to be dealing with is Isaiah chapter 65 with a pit stop in Galatians chapter 3, and then we're going to move into Luke chapter 8. We're not going to cover everything everywhere, but we're going to go in and look at the highlights of this theme that shows up, which is very, very cool. You guys are commenting, which makes me really want to see the comments. I can't believe. Show overlays. Is that it? Nope, that's not it. Don't do that. Image overlay. I'm sorry, I got distracted because you're popping. You're leaving comments. That's awesome. Keep doing it. Keep distracting me. But why would I not be able to see? It's always there as like a little toolbar right here, right. Where am I? Right there, and it's not there. Grr, bothers me. Can't believe it. All right. I will stop being distracted. We're going to go to Isaiah chapter 65 and deal with this. So Isaiah 65 is hard. It's a lot of God saying, you're getting condemned for stuff. It's harsh language. It's a good wrath of God kind of text. But then in the midst of the harsh language, some of the things that he is condemning may not be things that you have done or do, and maybe things that you maybe do but don't think are wrong. And that's where the pigs comes in and gets a little confusing. He really is turning this whole thing around to say that even though the people of Israel at that time are unfaithful to the covenant, it's not going to stop God from bringing the covenant to pass in Jesus Christ. That's where the end of the chapter goes. Now, we're not going to go all the way to that today. We're instead just going to be dealing with some of the finer language within that condemnation that happens earlier, as God is effectively telling Israel, I believe the north, through the prophet Isaiah, northern kingdom, remember there's a split, he's basically telling them, you have abandoned everything that I have given you or told you makes you who you are in my name, which of course is the Sinai covenant established by Moses, by God through Moses, which has really identified them, and to this day still continues to be a major identification factor for those who consider themselves to be Jews, yeah? And so God is telling them that they have rejected this, And in rejecting this, they're rejecting him. Well, then he describes the ways in which they have rejected this, and that's where the text comes out. And notice how verse 2 really starts. I spread out my hands all day to a rebellious people. It's like, this is Jesus crying over Jerusalem, right? Jerusalem, Jerusalem, you who stoned the prophets. I wanted to gather you together as a hen gathers her chicks. This is the same kind of thing. I desire to save you. Or Ezekiel, I do not desire the death of the wicked, but that he would turn and repent, right? I want you to be my people, all of you, every single one of you, not a single human being ever made does God not desire to be his people. But the problem is he's held on his hands, and you're a rebellious, you're a stiff-necked people. You walk in a way that is not good, following their own devices. Now, that isn't too stunning right now in terms of detail. It is a good summary of what we do day in, day out as people, right? I mean, don't you always kind of just assume that you're right and that guy's wrong, right? Like we follow our own devices pretty regularly. And even when it comes to learning the scriptures, we assume we know most of it and maybe need a little more, yeah? And so as a result, we end up really just deceiving ourselves a lot. Now, we could chase that. We're not gonna. Verse 3, a people who provoke me to my face continually. That is, you're coming to do some kind of worship that you actually say is in my name. And this is part of the problem. The northern Israelites weren't just pagans. They were pagans worshiping Yahweh, right? Sometimes mixed with Baal, sometimes not. But they had taken the name of being Israelites, that's their name, Israel, and they were using it not to be the ones for whom God fights in his covenants, but instead they were adopting non-covenantal practices. And that provoked him in front of his face. And then here are some of the ways they did it. Sacrificing in gardens, making offerings on bricks, sitting in tombs, spending the night in secret places, eating pig's flesh, broth of tainted meat being in the vessels. Now, most of those things have something to do one way or the other with various ancient pagan practices, which would have been not only forbidden by the Levitical law to do even if they weren't forbidden, but like just you're not allowed to go do what they do. No creative worship in the Old Testament, and really shouldn't be any here either if you really know what the word means. Also, though, some of these things were directly forbidden by Sinai itself, particularly like sitting in a tomb. You're not supposed to go near dead stuff generally. You bury and then you get away, and you're unclean for a certain amount of time until you get away. And then, of course, the pig's flesh, which is the pigs are one of several, many really, unclean animals, which a Hebrew was proscribed from eating. I forget which one the way the word works. We're not allowed to eat because they were, again, ritually unclean. Now, some modern scholars who I believed initially, but I completely think that they're just liberal when they say this, materialistic when they say this. I think the reason for this is that the people needed to be told by God, how nice of him, that if they didn't cook all the pig meat all the way through, that it would cause them problems. They get parasites, right? So you know you're not supposed to eat like raw pork, right? So don't do that. And they didn't know that back then. Poor dumb ancient people, so dumb. They're older. They don't have iPhones, so they're dumb. They didn't know that, and so God had to not tell them to cook it. He told them don't eat it, right? But then they could eat the cow raw. Apparently, well, he did actually. I think he does tell them to cook that too. The thing is, you can get parasites more places than just pig. And that's kind of the key piece to remember here. The issue is really not about pig or not pig. The issue really is about how God wanted to establish a clear dividing line between his people and the people of the world. He wanted there to be no question whatsoever when you looked at them that they were different. They would stand out like a sore thumb. To this day, if you in fact are a descendant of Abraham who practices the Jewish tradition as inherited from the Pharisees, who of course rejected Jesus, and you are doing it fully and completely according to all the bits of Torah that you can possibly do, which is most of it. However, the sacrifices kind of can't happen right now because of that whole, that's another issue, right? Jerusalem, different issue. If you do all that, you're going to stand out in a crowd. You will. You're going to look different. I think that's on purpose. I think God wanted that. I think that was to show that they were the people through whom and from whom the Christ would come. And of course, Jesus is that guy, right? Jesus is that guy. So that's what the pig stuff is about. In this, though, there also is a sort of symbolic reality that God is creating between the idea of clean and unclean, safe and unsafe, holy and unholy, being near him and being away from him, which really isn't about meat per se. It's about our sinful condition, the fall, the breaking of the world by Adam, and its results, and the need for him to come and, honestly, clean us. Say, wash us. In Greek, that would be baptize us. Careful, Baptists. I know. I meant wash. I really did. I swear. I meant wash, right? Because that's what the Greek word is, baptize. So, yeah, I hope you're laughing. He has to come and clean us. And the entire code, when it comes to those clean, unclean things, is ultimately about that need. Now, of course, you could bring up leprosy is unclean. Yes, it is. And you don't want to go near it because it'll actually get on you. That has other issues that are very symbolic and actually kind of cool how it teaches our sinful condition. But the majority of those cleaning rituals were there strictly to make this point, that to be near God, you have to be special, holy. Same word. And in order to be special, holy, you have to be clean. That needs to be done. The question is then, does pig meat do that or not? Now, some of the other things in here are kind of cool just to dwell on for half a second. Don't miss, though, the bottom of 5. I still don't know if you can see my cursor or not. At the bottom of 5, where it says, I am too holy for you. Oh, I'm sorry. No. We want to come back to that. That's not God talking. All right. So that's one of the ones I want to look at. The sacrificing in gardens would have been pretty common. Ancient world paganism often revolved around gardens, particularly trees. I shouldn't say ancient world because it's still true today. When paganism or semi-pagan practices begin to happen, it's really amazing how often it's around trees. So that's nothing new there. Making offerings on bricks. This probably has to do, again, with a certain kind of pagan offering of a loaf that had to be baked on a hot set of bricks or coals. I don't know much more than that, but that it could have been that. Clearly, it's connected to something that would not set them apart. They were not, to my knowledge, forbidden from cooking on bricks. But at that time, to do so was to be a part of some other thing. Right? Now, if someone knows better than me, by the way, correct me on that one. But I'm pretty sure that wasn't forbidden. So they're adopting an adiaphora, right? Something neither commanded nor forbidden, yet which in the current context makes them look like those others who are doing a bunch of other stuff that's been forbidden with the same stuff at the same time. And so in that case, you don't want to adopt that. You want to not look like them, which again is the whole point of the ritual code of the law. Not to mention, for Christians, we really don't want to look like pagans when it comes to the real pagan stuff, so we kind of have the same reality. The bit about sitting in tombs now. So now we got pigs and tombs. This is really cool. This is why this text is here, because in Luke chapter 8, we're going to have pigs and tombs. The bit about sitting in tombs, I'm not sure, is this Druids, right? I don't know what they were actually adopting and trying to do. But again, like I said before, to be near a dead body, to touch a dead body is to make oneself ritually unclean. You're not unable to worship at all, like effectively in the temple sacrifices and whatnot, if you've been unclean. So you're just not supposed to do this unless you're absolutely forced to do this. This would be why, by the way, you remember when in the parable of the Good Samaritan, when the guy gets attacked, right? And he's left by the road, and then you see, the Levite first comes by, and then I think it's a Pharisee goes by. Man, it's been a while since I looked at that. When you see those two guys go by, well, see, if they go and help him and he's dead, they don't know. He's over there lying on the ground. He's bloody, right? If they go help him and he's dead, guess what they can't do? Yeah, can't go to church. So it's not as though they didn't have a good reason for not helping him. It's just wasn't a good reason for helping them. But there's a ritual reason behind that. You're not supposed to touch the dead. Now, of course, Good Samaritan is teaching like, so what? Go help him, right? The point is not to justify yourself. The point was to set you apart. Yeah? And also, in this case, maybe to make you recognize that death is a result of our uncleanness and something that should not be around. Not by any means how God created the world, as the theistic evolutionists would have you believe. All right, so sitting in tombs, spending a night in the secret places, who knows? Druids, again, that, and it's not Druids actually, but that kind of thing. Secrecy is a big part of paganism. Paganism always says, we know something you don't know, come tell us, but they don't tell you right away. Like you have to do the initiation stuff first. You have to kind of work your way into this, and then once you've kind of proven yourself, we'll give you the secret knowledge. Yeah, that's what Gnosticism is all about. So there's some of that going on there. And then the broth of tainted meat, I don't know specifically. they're eating a ritual sacrifice that's not necessarily pig, but is unclean, and they're making use of it in their sacrifices. So there you go. You can see God saying by the end of this, verse 5, the smoke in my nostrils. This is a smoke in my nostrils of fire that burns all day. Have you ever, this reminds me, don't ever do this. When I was young, I probably had to be 18, 19. I could have been in my early 20s. Like, I realized, after you light a match to light a candle, because I really liked scented candles back then. I still do. I just never light them. But I lit a match to light a candle. I would always notice that, you wave it out, and like the waft of the match burning out is kind of a nice, pleasant smell, right? So I did it once, and then I put the match right to my nose, and I just breathed to try to get like a good scent of the thing. Holy moly, don't do that. Not healthy probably at all. And it ran up the nose and it burned, and it was like coughing. Smoke in your nostrils. You don't want that anyway. And that's just one example of smoke in your nostrils. Well, that's what this is to God. When you take what he has given you to save you, to say that you are mine, to show you that he's going to be gracious to you in spite of your sin and save you from it, and then you go and you hold that up in his face as a completely twisted and undone thing with no faith in him, and mixing it with the spirituality of the devil, of the fallen world. That's called syncretism, by the way. Syncretism, to blend together religions. I skipped over, beginning of verse 5. Those of you who say, this is again one of those things that was going on, keep to yourself, do not come near me, for I am too holy for you. Now, you could take this as being, again, what the Pharisees were kind of doing. Their name means holier than everybody else. That's the Pharisee. That kind of means that. You could take this as that, as like an early form of that. I'm not so sure, though. And I don't know. I have not studied this particular verse very deeply. I'm using a lot of other information about the Bible to understand the verse. But in this particular verse, it sounds kind of like what anybody who sets themselves on a path of self-justification ultimately gets to, which is to thinking that you're more pious than anybody else. Well, maybe not anybody else, but then that guy at least. Not that guy. You ever seen what that guy does? Unbelievable, right? And so you in the midst of your very hoity-toity spiritual practices, the vessels, and I stayed up all night last night in a tomb that had to get me some time off purgatory. Oh, wait, I didn't mean to conflate those ideas. I really didn't mean to do that. Yeah. So whenever you set yourself on a path of self-justification, you end up in a situation where you're going to look down at other people for not being as pious as you are. And that was happening here as well. So those who had ascended in the certain level to the secret chambers, the 33rd degree Baal worshiper, I conflated that one too, didn't I? They were thinking that made them better Christians than other people. So that's the Isaiah text. Now, the Galatians text doesn't mention pigs directly, but deals with what about the pigs? We're not allowed to eat pigs. I'm a Christian. I've eaten a pig my entire life. How can you say I'm not supposed to eat pigs? It deals with that. And it is true that we are allowed to eat pigs as Christians. I'll try to explain that here. But I want to say, just because you've done something your whole life as a Christian or as a Lutheran or as a human, doesn't mean it's right. You definitely want to test these things according to the scriptures. I'm all thrown off by my picture. I'm going to move my picture. There we go. All right. So Galatians is all about, the whole book is about how those ritual laws I was talking about earlier, those Levitical codes and whatnot, it's not so much that they've passed away, although you could say that. You can rightly say that and understand it. It's not so much that they've passed away, though, as that they have been fulfilled. And that all of these things from before Jesus that were spoken of God in many times in various ways, and I have to pause, I apologize. All of these things spoken by God in many times in various ways have come to Jesus, had Jesus live perfectly according to them without breaking a single bit of it, not only in deed, but also in word and thought. And then in his crucifixion as the actual Passover lamb of the history of the world, they have been fulfilled. It is finished, as he has himself said. Now, what he means by that is that the things for which these shadows of his salvation existed has now been surpassed by the actual thing. right? Think about your shadow on the ground outside when you're walking somewhere and the sun's behind you, right? The shadow precedes you, and then you show up. Now, how much can you tell about yourself from your shadow? A little bit, but not a lot. Not everything, to be sure. And certainly, who would choose a shadow over the real thing? That is, again, if there is a problem with Judaism as a religion, that would be it, right? That they have chosen the shadow over the real thing. There's a lot of Christians out there that are dumb enough to do that too. So, and sorry, I shouldn't say that. That's mean. But it's like the whole anti-Semitism thing earlier. Like at a certain point, you are just being intellectually sloppy and choosing not to know what's obvious. You can learn this. It's not very difficult to read the book of Galatians or the book of Hebrews. And if you do, cover to cover, you will by no means come away thinking, oh, cool, I have to keep the Old Testament law. No, you don't, Christian. No, you don't. Yeah, it's just not that tough. There's tough stuff. That's not it. Like 3-year-olds can get that. Anyhow, the whole book is to demonstrate to a whole congregation in Galatia who was not getting it, that to not get it too seriously, to insist on the old covenant law, circumcision per se, rather than it's being fulfilled in Jesus, is to cut yourself off, pun intended, by Paul, from Christ. That's the whole book. In the section we're looking at, chapter 3, he then is talking about the purpose of the law, meaning the Torah really, more than just like law and gospel. This isn't so much a law-gospel thing, so much as a Old Testament thing here. That what was the purpose of God's giving this law at that time? Now, you could go law-gospel with this as well, by the way. I shouldn't quite say it the way I just did, because it's true indeed so far as the first use of the law is concerned. That is that which is built into nature and curbs us when we go too far astray. That could also be in here as well. He's talking about that, but that's really not his primary thing. His primary thing is to talk about what the Torah was doing. So he says, before faith came, and by that he doesn't mean faith at all, because obviously the Old Testament Christians were Christians who were saved by faith. What he means is before the fullness of the revelation of Jesus Christ risen from the dead, which is our Christian faith fully confessed now, before the shadow passed away and the actual thing came, we, he says, and he includes himself in this. Don't miss this. Remember, as I was saying earlier, dude's a Jew. Yeah? Would you hate Paul too? Is Paul the one that's like running Google? I mean, geez, come on. He includes himself not so much because he's talking about being Jewish by blood. He's talking about people who are legalistically bound, so that their own consciences can no longer see or understand. They're on that path of I'm so holy self-justification. We were held captive under the law, imprisoned until the coming faith would be revealed. Now, he is talking about his people now. Yeah, his ancestral, familial people, among whom there were many people who were Christians, were Messiah waiters, forers, all the way back. I mean, David, right? Solomon, at least for a while, maybe again. Plenty of faithful people back in those times. I'm not going to list every saint in the Old Testament. So they're there, but he calls them imprisoned under the law. He meant under the Torah, under the shadow, under the don't eat pigs, and under the only worship on Saturday, and under the don't make clothing different ways, and no shellfish, and only go so far, or rest so much, and all this kind of stuff. They were imprisoned under that. Why? Well, because it was preparing the actual history of the world for Jesus to show up and do what he did on that day. Why didn't God do it right away? Really? I mean, you asked him that later, assuming that was asked in faith. You asked God that later. Although the easy answer is because he wanted to save you, and if he hadn't done it the way he did it, you wouldn't exist, and he loves you, and he wants you here. That's the easy answer. Yeah? So they were then imprisoned in a shadowy understanding, an incomplete understanding of the Messiah and what he would do until he actually came and this faith was revealed. Remember how all these people who knew the Bible didn't know what Jesus was doing, and even when he's like, I'm going to die, I'm going to rise, they're like, what? Huh? What? He's like, the scripture says this, or what? Huh? And after he rises, he's like, look, guys, it says it. And they're like, oh, it totally does. Right? That's what he's talking about. Verse 24, the law was our guardian until Christ came in order that we might be justified by faith. Now, the law then, the Torah then, at that time, did not justify them. Jews are not saved by the law in the Old Testament. They're saved by the same faith. But it guarded their people as a people, a bloodline of DNA from whom Jesus came. It kept them together. They, as much as they tried to rebel and get away, amazingly, Of all the various people groups that are pretty clearly ethnically held together going back several thousand years. Well, look at that. Yeah, that's amazing. Well, part of it was what the law did. It bound them into this until, and the whole point of it was, until faith came, until Jesus came. So that they could be justified by Christ through faith, and so that we could be justified by Christ through faith. Now that faith has come, verse 25, we are no longer under a guardian. You don't need the shadows. Kaboom. No, not eating pigs. You may eat pigs. I should still cook them. Yeah, and maybe not too much. Pork's good for you, but not that good for you, right? So, in moderation. But the point being, it's not an unclean animal. It's not part of your worship. You are, now the faith has come, I'm going to just read 26 again. I got lost. We are now, 25, we are now under a guardian. No longer under a guardian. For, verse 26, in Jesus Christ Jesus, you are all sons of God through faith. So because of Christ and what he's done, we're not slaves, we're sons. He's going to run with that later in the chapter. Actually, it's in chapter 4. I'm not going to dig into that now, but I do want to deal with this one little bit here that, the progressive liberals love this verse. So, for as many of you as were baptized into Christ have put on Christ. Why don't we ever talk about that in the baptism verses? Oh, wait, Lutherans do. Yeah, right. So just don't miss that. As many of you as were washed, mentioning cleanness in a book about Levitical codes, interesting. As many of you as were washed into Christ have put on Christ. So baptism, of course, does what the text says it does. So he says, verse 28, there is neither Jew nor Greek. Now, I didn't plan this for the anti-Semitism thing from earlier. I forgot about that part. I mean, really, come on. I'm sorry. There's neither Jew nor Greek. Really? And you're going to sit here and blah, 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 Jews. I mean, really? Come on. It's right there. There is no ethnicity anymore. Now, that doesn't mean you don't have a culture, you don't have a heritage, you don't have people you're related to. It doesn't mean groups of people can't get together and do evil things. But it means that if you're a Christian, you judge an individual by the fact that they're forgiven in Jesus Christ, they are human, and they're your neighbor who you are to love. That's how you judge them, not based on their skin or nationality. Unbelievable. Anyway, he's talking about salvation for all people. The salvation is for all people. And at this point, particularly, he's saying, you Greeks, you nation people, you ethnicities of the world who are not Jewish, oh yeah, you're allowed in too, because see, the thing was, the early Christians were going the other way around. Some of them were saying, no Greeks can get in this thing. And that's the problem. Unbelievable. It's like flipped. It's the same thing. We're such hateful creatures. Anyhow, there's neither Jew nor Greek. There is neither slave nor free, which isn't to say there is no slavery or freedom in his world or in the history of the world. To this day, there is slavery in the world. There is sex traffic slavery going on in the United States. So don't pretend that's not there just because we dealt with one particular very evil issue and got it off the books in theory a while ago. The point of neither slave nor free here is not that there is no slavery in the world, but if you're a slave or if you are free, insofar as God is concerned about you and Jesus, it doesn't matter for your salvation at all, right? Wealthy, poor, all that kind of thing. And then he says, of course, male and female here, which is kind of the liberal latch-on point. Ooh, male or female. There is neither male nor female. That must mean we can have female pastors. Yeah, right? It's easy to run with that one. Of course, that would be like saying that therefore there actually aren't like people descended from Jews or Greeks, and there aren't actual, servants, slaves in the world or free people in the world, and there's no such thing as really males or females at all. Like if you're going to take it that way, well, I guess our culture has, haven't we? Yeah, go figure. I don't think they planned that in the United Methodists in the 1920s. I don't think they were planning what's going on right now. In any case, he's not talking about how they don't exist. He's saying that so far as God is concerned about your salvation, male or female, neither one has an impact on your salvation. Not even a little bit, because you're all one in Christ Jesus. Yeah, cool. It's the gospel. I mean, why is this? It's not surprising. It shouldn't be surprising. This is like what we know, right? Or it should be. Now, of course, the Bible will talk in other places about male and female and their distinctions, and we can talk about it another time. But this text has nothing to do with women's ordination. Zero, zilch, zip. It only has to do with Paul trying to say that Jesus has died for everybody. He is the new covenant that is, as the fullness, overcome and replaced the old shadows. Those have been passed away and or fulfilled in him. And now, because you are baptized, washed into him, you have the entire thing. You are, as he says at the end, Abraham's offspring. Abraham's offspring. By blood. Don't miss this. Don't you dare look away and miss this. You, Christian, are Abraham's offspring by blood. Not because your dad came from the line of Abraham or your mom, depending on who you want to argue with about where that comes from, but because when you feasted upon the Lord's Supper today, or maybe it was last week or a month ago or quarterly or annually, I don't care. When you feast upon the Lord's Supper, guess what you are drinking? The blood of the line of Abraham. That'd be Jewish blood in that cup. Just so you know, you who want to bash on him for no real good reason, just so you know, you're a Jew too now. You are Abraham's offspring through faith, absolutely. It's by the power of Jesus' words with the wine and the bread, of course. And then faith is the benefit of believing it to be true. But you are now more Abraham's offspring than those who might be directly descended who have rejected the offspring who is living forever and will never die again, heirs according to the promise. So, now, that's all the short stuff. Let's see. I'm glad you're still sticking with me. Getting a little long, but that's all right. That's all right. We're doing time-wise. Oh, man, I am going to run out of time. So, all this really comes to a head. All those two pieces just build upon and get dropped into Luke chapter 8, where Jesus gets off a boat. It's out of the blue, because the previous weeks we've been doing the festival season of the church year, which is always following the life of Jesus and the life of his church so far as Pentecost is concerned. And then, of course, we had the Athanasian Creed too. But now for this ordinary time, the green season that runs through the end of the year, we go back and we pick up all the stuff in the gospel that we were looking at this year, if you're in the 3-year, that we didn't really look at. Mostly teachings, although there's stories involved with that as well, but they don't fit into the festival season of the church year. And so here we are, just suddenly we're getting off the boat with Jesus in the land of the Gerasenes. Kaboom. Oh, wow, nice to be here. Yeah? And then, you know this story, and it is a crazy story. There's this crazy wild-eyed guy. I mean, you just got to imagine this guy. He probably had tattoos. It's not, I got a tattoo. It's not, I'm not anti-tattoo, but just imagine someone just covered in tattoos and cuttings and pierced stuff through everywhere. He's got shackles on his arms. He's wailing, he's screaming, and he runs right at Jesus. And, who are you? He yells at him. Now, what are you to do with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? He wants to know who Jesus is and what he's doing there. Now, we know this guy is possessed by a good number of demons. We're going to see that in the text as well. He is a guy who has had a history in this region of being this possessed crazy guy, seemingly even to at times get supernatural powers. We're told that he breaks the shackles they put him in. He likes to, live in the tombs, live with the dead. Now, wasn't that in Isaiah? I believe it was. Yeah. Now, it's not really what Isaiah was talking about necessarily. Could be. But it is, a little thing. Notice the connection between the two there, right? That this unclean man in an unclean place, and really a guy who's living in the grave also, completely crazy and unable to do anything other than excoriate God, right? What are you doing here, God? Don't, I hate you. You're a jerk. Don't torment me. Huh? He comes running at Jesus for that. And again, I'm not going to spend a ton of time going into the back of him. There's more in the text that preceded this that we could look at, but we're told Jesus had at some point, said, come out of him to the demon, and the demon didn't, which is weird. Usually Jesus just says it and it happens, and it probably was like a little trick of the devil. I mean, I don't know if I can get into this being too, this is my speculation here, quite a bit, I suppose, that if Jesus said, you individual come out of him, then the demons are like, which one? Yeah, that kind of thing. So it's not as though Jesus doesn't have the power, but indeed, at this point, they start talking to him, and so Jesus doesn't ask. Verse 30, in response, he says, well, what's your name? Right? Since you haven't come out, what's your name? And they don't give a proper name. They say legion, which is a specific number of troops in the Roman army for a certain group. So many legions of soldiers. And the point here is that he's saying there's that many demons, 1,000. I don't remember if it's not 1,000. I can't remember. It's a good number. It's a large number of demons inside of him. That many had entered him. That's all the setup for really what we want to kind of look at today. But it is it's a crazy story. It's a powerful story. Do you believe in demons? Yeah. Topic for another time. I do. I don't practically often enough. I am all too practically an atheist. Now, take that for what it means. That means that when I walk out this door in a few minutes and go get in my car, I'm not going to be thinking about demons. I'm going to be thinking about cars. Yeah? I'm a materialist. I should say a practical materialist more than a practical atheist. That's not really fair to say atheist. I'm a practical materialist. Not on purpose. I'm not saying this on purpose. I'm just saying this how we're kind of conditioned to live as Christians, and we would do well to slow down and ask, wait a minute. This world that he's describing is not the one I see. Which one's true? Yeah, and is what I see more trustworthy than what it says? No, that'd be the answer to that. So here's where we're going, though. This is where the pay dirt, I hope, will come if you've been with us this whole time. So after he tells them his name, they beg him not to command them to depart into the abyss. Now, that's a loaded term, abyss. This is a term that can mean a number of things in Hebrew thought. One of them is just the ocean, right? So when Jonah goes over the ship into the sea, he's down in the abyss. I believe the language of the prayer he prays in Jonah chapter 2 uses the word abyss. The depths, right? The depths and the bowels of the ocean. So the abyss is that. And then at the same time as the abyss is the sea and the abyss is sort of like a congealed idea, like a symbol that's not really real but kind of is real. It is also the place of eternal torment for the devil and all his angels. It's hell in a sense. But it's kind of the present hell and the shadowy hell. Remember the shadow and reality thing? Like Jesus has come, he's made it very clear what the end times reality for the devil is, and it's the lake of fire, the abyss of fire. But back then it was just the ocean was kind of the idea. And even to the extent that Hebrew peoples, maybe not knowing better, not based on scripture per se, thought of the abyss as the haunt, the place in which the demons were. Now, maybe this was because, things like Leviathan are described as being like a dragon living in the water that is terrifying and unable to be dealt with by mankind. Oh, wait, that could be the devil, and that would be the sea. Look at that. How much of Job is a physical reality, and how much is the description of the evils in which the devil exists now and will be cast finally and at the end of days? We can debate that another time. What you can't debate is that the abyss is both a picture for the sea and a way of describing the place of demons and a way of describing the end of demons to which they will ultimately and finally go. And so here they are saying to Jesus, don't make us go there. Well, that's odd. He hasn't died or anything. Maybe they don't really know what he's doing. Yeah? Maybe they don't really know he's planning to die. But they know he's there. I believe it's in Mark where the demon actually says, same guys, plural, says, why have you come before the appointed time? Right? Like, wait. We have an idea about the world ending and we know it's not right now. So what you doing here, Jesus? Like, Son of God, what did you come out of heaven for? This is not according to plan. I don't understand. Right? And so that's kind of going on here a little bit. And yet they also are asking him, like, well, maybe we got it wrong. Maybe we misunderstood. This is the end of the world. Would you please not cast us into hell? Please? But begging in an evil way. These are not faithful beings in any way, shape, or form. So begging in an evil way. Don't send us into the abyss. Now, you think that he doesn't do it in a sense, right? But he does. So there's verse 32, a herd of pigs feeding there on the hillside. And they begged him to let them enter these pigs. Now remember, Jesus is a Jew, his apostles are Jews, pigs are verboten. Jesus did not eat pork flesh in his entire life. No bacon, because he wanted to save you. Just remember that. I'm making a little too light of it, I suppose. But he didn't. Like, these are unclean animals. They're not really supposed to come into contact with them in any way. But they're also out preaching, teaching those who will listen. You find that a lot of pagans and Gentiles, same word, do come and want to hear about Jesus, so he's out there doing that. And so they're in this other land, though. They're across the Sea of Galilee, outside of Judea and Israel, so that there are unclean herds there. Okay, no big deal, I suppose, except for that, they are there, and they are unclean. You really want to catch that this is the unclean animals here. And they beg Jesus to let them go into the unclean animals. Now you might think, well, that was really mean of Jesus to let them do that. But remember, he's removing them from his son, effectively, right? Just like you, a man for whom he will die, a man who he wants to unleash from the power of diabolical torment. And so he allows this to happen. And it's just so odd, right? The story just reads so odd on the surface. He gives them permission, sure. You demons want to admit before all the world and for all history that you're unclean and enter into these unclean animals because you think it's going to get you to not go into the abyss? So the demons came out of the man. Notice they needed his permission to do that, by the way. The demons came out of the man and entered the pigs, and then the herd rushed down the steep bank into the lake and drowned. Now, it makes me think of a video game called Lemmings, which I never played, but I remember seeing it, where you play these lemmings and they're jumping off the cliff, and it's based on the story about the lemmings from, is it Ireland? I can't remember. Where they all, or Norway, Sweden, where they're all like running and jumping off the cliffs every year, and apparently that's all just like a myth. That's a lie from what I've heard recently. Although, if you think otherwise, by all means, happy to comment. Hear a comment on do lemmings really jump into the sea? But this is this massive herd of pigs, just running directly into the ocean and drowning themselves entirely. And I know as a kid you were like, what? What? Why'd Jesus kill the pigs? Or why Jesus let the demons kill the pigs? That's weird. Was it a big trick? The demons were like, oh, and now we can do this. That doesn't make a lot of sense because they were kind of happy with a host, as it were, a host body, and then they were going to get more hosts, and then they killed the host. So where are they going to go now? Oh, wait, look where they are. Look where they are. They're in the sea. Now, it says lake. That's nice. It is by some definitions, but whenever the Hebrews would talk about the sea, it was often this one, especially New Testament. They're in the abyss. So they say, don't throw us into the abyss. And they're like, put us in the pigs instead. And he's like, okay. And then they get in the pigs and they go into the abyss, which is both for him to say, like, he didn't send them to the final place now because it isn't available, because he hadn't died and risen yet. It's not available until after the end of time. But they're going to go there. They're eventually going to go there. And the pigs going into the water are his ultimately saying, I'm going to deal with you later. And this is exactly how I'm going to deal with you. I'm going to deal with you the way you know I'm going to deal with you, which is to send you into the abyss prepared for the devil and all his angels. That's the demons I'm talking about now. Now the pigs are pigs. Pigs are, from what I understand, great animals, make good pets. They're also animals. They come and they go. You got to know that in order for things to live, things have to die in the present age. If you want to eat, you got to kill something. And so we really should think of human life as something a little bit different than animal life. You could also say, look how horrible sin is, that the brokenness of the world caused a whole herd of pigs to die. Look, we're destroying huge environmental areas, and don't talk about the rainforest. Just look at what we've done to the states with regards to habitats and whatnot. And I'm not a crazy environmentalist, but like, don't tell me you're gonna go huffy and puffy about the pigs, and then you're gonna go, buy your gluten-free vegan dairy smoothie, if that's possible, whatever, that was grown on acres and acres and acres and acres of corn and soy that you had to displace all sorts of animals to grow. So, you got to get off that one a little bit here. But I get it. It's sad. The pigs died. So blame the demons and recognize that, and blame us, right? We killed Christ, that kind of thing. And recognize that the demons doing this to the entire world from the fall until Jesus returns is the picture being created here. We're the pigs. We're the pigs. As you're putting the symbols together on this thing, behind the real thing that happened, the unclean animals that shouldn't have been really ever near God have had God come near by crossing the sea and then casting into the abyss, well, the demons who possess them. Now, if we're going to take it that way, remember that even though the pigs go into the abyss, if they're us, and the abyss is death and hell and Hades, well, see, we go in and come out in death. But then while the pigs go in, the uncleanness goes in, yeah? Look who's sitting there in his right mind. The guy who no one could bind, who was insane, ravaging and insane with demon possession, who now just wants to follow Jesus. Can I go with you back across the abyss, back across the sea to the promised land, where all the guarantees and heritages of God are? Now, another weird thing that's not in the text right here in front of us, but Jesus says no. He said, no, you stay here. And that had to be kind of like, well, that's disappointing, right? But he doesn't do that too much. He goes on his way telling people what's happened. But you got to kind of think about it this way too. Just imagine, and again, this is speculation, but barely, I think. Barely speculation. Hold on. Sorry, little gassy there. Oh, it's going to come again. A little bit of speculation, but I think it's pretty decent guess. Just imagine you're this guy, right? And you were crazy living in a tomb with your body all cut up and crazy stuff all done to it, and no one ever listened to you because you were screaming at them or doing weird stuff. And then this guy, Jesus, comes along and he's like, I'm saving you. And then you're like, boom. You're like, it's not like just all Christians get this, right? I mean, he really had like that transformational moment, bam, just like that. And then he says, no, you can't come with me, go that way. So you go that way, you start telling people like, oh, weren't you the guy? And you're like, yep, that was me. Wow, what happened? Oh, this guy, Jesus, he's a Jew from across the way. Yeah, he did this to me. He might be, they talk about that Messiah guy. Yeah, he might be that. I kind of think he is, right? So he's doing that. He's telling people that, yada, yada. Time goes by. Year, 2 years, 3, 4, I don't know, somewhere in there. And as the time goes by, and he's like out one afternoon or whatever, or somewhere in the area, like hanging out, maybe telling someone again about, oh man, you remember how that happened? Yeah, it was so crazy. And the pigs ran into the field. You were there that day, weren't you? Yeah, well, that was that Jesus guy. And then in comes to town somebody who says, you'll never believe this. You know how, there was that big thing in Jerusalem way back when like they all got mad and like killed that guy in the middle of their Holy Week, and Pilate like did it and it almost caused a riot, all this kind of stuff. Yeah, they're saying he's alive. They're saying he's not dead anymore. And then, maybe a little while later, in comes, I don't know, Stephen, Philip would be more likely, I suppose. Some other deacon. Matthias maybe came up that way. Who knows? And they start saying, we're here. We've seen him. He's alive. We were the witnesses of these things. Classic gospel message. What do you think this guy's going to do at that point? Yeah, he's a Christian. He's a Christian. It's okay. He's going to get baptized, and he's going to be part of the Christian community wherever he was. So don't take Jesus sending him off as if like, well, good luck, or, well, Christians, just go do what you want. It's more like, hey, my friend, I got a little more I got to do to make what you just saw happen to the whole world and actually apply to you beyond this present age. And so that is what happened. So I don't know that I tied it together as much as I would have liked to with the pigs there at the end, but I think it is pretty neat the way those readings all hook up. And I think it is stunningly powerful in the way that story has like these layers, in which on the top layer, obviously the history just happened. But on another layer, Jesus is kind of sending a message, like to the demons, right? How do we say it? I'm not pop culture relevant anymore. They were put on notice, right? They were put on notice. That's what he did. He put them on notice. Like, this wasn't the time where you're actually getting thrown in. Oh, but I did take care of forging the key just the other day. So, beware. And now, of course, we know he has forged the key. We know he has the keys to death and Hades, the abyss. We know that the demons are out there. They know their time is short now. They do. Revelation says that. They know their time is short, so they're not backing off. They're going to keep lying and deceiving and tricking and all that kind of stuff. So they know their time is short. And then we, as those who are of the church, Christians, are effectively that guy waiting for our Lord's return. Now, again, the analogy will break down eventually, but we're here, we're gathered, knowing what Jesus has done for us, but looking for his return to fulfill and complete what he had yet to do, of course, ascending and then making all of the enemies of the world his footstool before he returns. And of course, letting you be born, which wouldn't have happened if he'd fixed it all back then, letting you be born so that he could also save you. Yeah? I would love to take a comment, but again, I can't see them. This is just, it's an easy, oh, wait, is that it? No, I clicked that earlier. That's that. That's like the most recent comment. Well, I'm going to go ahead and close out and then get on my way to some other stuff this afternoon. Hopefully this has been helpful. It's been a little longer than I wanted. How did I go? 54 minutes. That's a sermon. We don't preach like that anymore. Why? Oh, because I got to be home in an hour. Yeah. All right. Thanks for tuning in. I really hope you've enjoyed it, and we will catch you tomorrow with something fresh and new. Try not to be racist on my channel because it's wrong. And remember that Google demonetized the tags that were just free speech and, public square. And watch the front if you didn't see that. That's fun. Who knows? We're going to survive because Jesus is risen. We'll catch you tomorrow. Rock on.